Hello, my name is Sudeshna and I am a decision support specialist in the Global Peer Review Department within Taylor & Francis. Thank you for joining me on this Crossref Similarity Check training session. This session will cover how the Crossref software works, how to submit a paper to Crossref via a ScholarOne Manuscripts and an Editorial Manager site, the kind of things you should be looking for in a Crossref Similarity Check report, and some important things you should know about when using Crossref. To begin, I'll explain how the Crossref Similarity Check system works. When a paper is submitted to Crossref, it is digitally compared against the Crossref database. This includes thousands of journals, hundreds of thousands of published articles, and literally millions of internet pages. It is extremely extensive. Crossref will then return a list of all similar text matches from the database, as well as an overall percentage of paper similarity. It is important to bear in mind that Crossref relies heavily on manual interpretation. There are many factors that could influence a similarity percentage, so you should never base your decision on the percentage alone. You should go through each paper's Crossref results manually, no matter what the overall similarity score is. Because at the end of the day, Crossref Similarity Check is only a tool, not a plagiarism verifier. It is more like a computerized spot the difference engine, and it needs you to interpret the results it has found. Before we look at an originality report, I'm going to move over to another site for how to submit a paper to Crossref in Editorial Manager and then to ScholarOne Manuscripts site. I am now going to move away from these slides to demonstrate how to submit a paper to Crossref Similarity Check in Editorial Manager. This is Automatica, a Taylor & Francis journal that currently uses Crossref to check their submissions in Editorial Manager. I have logged into the site and we are on the main menu page which all users are met with when they enter the system. Now, to submit a paper to Crossref Similarity Check, we navigate to any active paper and from the Action Links menu of the paper to the far left, we select File Inventory. A window will pop up displaying all the files uploaded by the authors. You can use the buttons here in the top of the window to either submit the whole paper to Crossref, or you can use the tick boxes on the far left to select a specific file that you would like to check. I would not do so now as this is a live site. Once the paper has been submitted, a new link will appear in the Action Links menu called the Similarity Check or Authenticate Results with an ellipsis in the brackets. This indicates that the paper has been submitted and the results are pending. When the Crossref report has finished running, and this may take up to 10 minutes depending on the file size, the ellipsis will become a percentage number indicating the overall percentage similarity in the paper. Click the Similarity or Authenticate Results link and a new pop-up window will appear. The word completed is a hyperlink that can be clicked to open the full Crossref report for the editors to view. Moving on, this is the journal All Life, another Taylor & Francis journal that currently uses Crossref to check their submissions on the ScholarOne site. I have logged in and we are on the main menu page which all users see when they enter the system. Now, to submit a paper to Crossref Similarity Check, we navigate to any active paper and select View Details. Scrolling down the Manuscript Information tab, the option to submit a paper to Crossref will appear directly below the Author Supplied Data section in this tab named Plagiarism Check. In this panel, we see this paper has already been submitted. But before submittal, we would choose the desired file from the drop-down list and then click Submit to send the document through Crossref. Once the file has been submitted to Crossref, the screen would display a confirmation message and we would click OK. Depending on the file size, files will take up to 10 minutes to receive results from Crossref. Once results are received, as we see here, the panel displays the overall similarity index percentage and a link to view the originality report created by the Crossref Similarity Check system. Let's click this link and see what the report shows us. We're taken to a new window where we see the overall similarity percentage in the top right, the submitted paper on the left, and the matching sources on the right. The similarity score is calculated by dividing the number of matching words by the total number of words in the document. Noticing upwards, we can see flags in the top right corner. The Authenticate system looks deeply at a document for any inconsistencies that would probably set it apart from any normal submission. Paper mills and authors looking to hinder similarity matching abuse text manipulation techniques by trying to pass plagiarized content off as genuine. For example, hidden quotation marks could influence the amount of quoted material recognized in a document. When a user excludes well-referenced matches using the exclude quotes functionality, that I'll show you later, a manipulated document would also hide plagiarized content. However, please note that vast majority of documents will not have flags. So if you see nothing here, that's good. Before looking any deeper, let's go to the settings option by clicking the gear icon in the top right hand and ensure that exclude bibliography is selected. This sometimes affects the total similarity percentage you see at the top. Content exclusions can include removing any matches to the bibliography or any places within a document where the author has used quotes. Using the checkbox listed here, you can select the content types you would like to exclude for all documents. Small matches will remove all matches that are less than or equal to the length of the number of words supplied. Quotes looks for all content between quotation marks and excludes this text from the report. Citation will look for common inline citation methods and remove them from the similarity report. Both the citation and the associated text will be excluded. After making our preliminary adjustments, we can then toggle back to the source list by clicking Done on the bottom right. From the source list, there are two different report views you can use to examine the Crossref matches for each paper: Sources Overview and All Sources. Sources Overview is the default viewing mode that we're in now. This is a general top hits view that lists all texts that have similarity to parts of other papers in the Crossref Similarity Check database with the best matches that the system has found. All Sources mode lists all match sources between the database and the submitted document. It is the other way around to Sources Overview and provides a more granular breakdown of similar material and not just a general summary. This is the view you should always use to assess similarity in a paper, as it puts the submitted paper into focus. Now that we've switched to All Sources view, we can take a closer look at these overlapping sources. The papers matched are shown in the panel on the right, divided into numbered panels, and you can switch between the sources by simply clicking on them. When you've selected a source, all the matching text will be highlighted in the submitted paper in the left-hand panel, and the match source panel will expand under the first selected match source, indicating overlapping material. You can click on the hyperlink that appears at the top of this expanded panel to access the specific web page with which the duplication occurred, and this page, as shown, will open in a new tab. You can also click on View Full Text to see the submitted paper and the highlighted source side by side. In the full text option, the highlighted text indicates matches between the submitted paper and this particular source. You'll see that each match source displays an individual percentage, showing how much of this text has been overlapped. Once again, please remember to never take these percentages at face value. The percentage is a good indicator of how closely we need to investigate the report, and a high percentage would alert us that this is a report that could be significant, but it would not give us cause to dismiss the paper outright, even if it were high. It is worth bearing in mind that if authors have hosted the preprint of their submitted paper in an online repository through their institutional affiliation, for example, then it is possible that this will be detected in the Crossref report, and as such, it will probably produce a very high overall percentage. This would be the same for any working papers on which the submitted paper is based. This is not a reason to reject the paper, but it is worth checking that the matching paper is just a preprint and not a finished publication, and that it is hosted by a verifiable repository. If you require any assistance with this, please don't hesitate to contact your portfolio manager or other editorial contact here at Taylor & Francis. When you've verified that the match is a preprint or a working paper, you can click on the Exclude button by slightly hovering over the particular match. You will see a small eye-shaped icon with a strike through it, and once clicked, it will exclude the selected paper from the list of matching sources. All papers you exclude can be retrieved back again by clicking on the Similarity Exclusion option at the top of the panel. Click on that eye icon again. This time it will not have a strike through it, and return the matches and click on Done. You can refine a report at any time to better suit your needs by re-clicking on the Settings option on your top right. You can exclude matches from a specific database or adjust other exclusion options, such as excluding the bibliography or quoted material, and click on Done as mentioned before. Alternatively, select the source that you would like to exclude. The source will expand to show you a snippet of the matching text. Scroll to the bottom of the source text and click Exclude this text. This will also exclude your text. Now we're going to move on from this manuscript to some example papers to better illustrate the type of scenarios you might come across when you're using Crossref Similarity Check. We have 4 training papers that we will be analyzing for today's session. Before we have even entered training paper number 1, we can see a very high similarity percentage. We will now take a closer look at the report to ascertain the extent and significance of the similarity. First, we will check that we have excluded bibliography from the match results and that we are in the All Sources viewing mode. Now that that's done, scrolling through, we can see from the blue highlighted text that the author of the submitted paper has taken almost the entirety of the paper from the match source and only changes references to the country in question. The match source is a paper about hotels in Poland and Sweden, and the author has simply replaced references to those countries for China. They haven't changed the data or the text, they have just interposed Chinese place names. Evidently, we wouldn't need to investigate this any further. This paper would need to be rejected. However, I must stress that this kind of self-evident case is extremely rare, and most cases require more analysis. So let's look at a few more examples. You can see that these 2 papers have a relatively similar overall level of similarity. However, as we will see when we look more closely at them, each one will reach slightly different conclusions. making our preliminary adjustments, and scrolling through, we see in this example that there are few short phrases with moderate similarity, phrases like pair domination or minimum cardinality. By clicking through the source list, we see many of these same phrases are common to multiple sources with multiple different authors. This gives a strong indication that these are standard phrases for this area of research. I'm sure there are certain things in your field of study that are always referred to in the same way, technical language or set phrases that have been carefully defined and redefined through years of research. And this paper is an example of that use of terminology. Generally, this sort of similarity is not considered to be significant. The way in which you deal with cases like this, however, is still down to your judgment. You may consider whether the author could describe a certain section differently if you return the paper, or that it would change the entire meaning of the text too much, or it may be that the similarity is just too extensive and the paper should be rejected. This kind of overlap, as with others, needs to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. Moving on to the next paper and making our preliminary adjustments again, making sure we are in the all sources viewing mode, clicking on the first match source. We see that there is a similar fragmented level of similarity displayed in this report as to the previous one. But the difference here is that the match source is referenced. The way to check this would be to scroll down to the list of references at the bottom. At a glance through the list shows us that the source paper by He and Huang is listed at number 12. And when we scroll up back, here on page number 2 in introduction, the authors have explicitly stated that they are following an idea from this source paper by He and Huang, cited as source number 12, which explains the similarity. Now if we scroll through, we see source number 12 is cited thoroughly and appropriately throughout the paper. For example, we have it here on page number 6. Then we again have it here on page number 8 and page number 9. Despite this, you should bear in mind that referencing a source does not always make the level of similarity acceptable. If the similarity was extremely extensive, more so than this, even heavy referencing would not necessarily make it justifiable. Once again, it is up to the editor to judge. With any of these reports, it is worth bearing in mind that Crossref only highlights direct similarity. In other words, where there are strings or sections of identical words in the same position. If there is any paraphrasing in a manuscript, then Crossref will not be able to detect this. Crossref also does not detect similarity in figures or images. This is part of what we mean when we say that Crossref is only a tool for visualizing similarity in papers, and it is up to the reader to interpret what each report signifies in a wider context. Now, leaving paper 3 behind, our final article is an example of a paper that would probably need to go back to the author for revision. Again, before moving any further, making sure that our preliminary adjustments are in place and that we're in the all sources viewing mode. Now moving to page number 3, we see a large matched paragraph of densely highlighted text which spreads on to page 4, and this will need to be rewritten. The indicated source paper by Fernandez would also need to be thoroughly referenced. Scrolling down to the reference list, this paper is referenced as number 24, but we did not see it cited often across the manuscript. After the revised version is submitted, we recommend that you run the amended paper through Crossref Similarity again to see if it has improved. If it hasn't, don't be afraid of sending it back to be revised once more. Sometimes authors are not as thorough as we need them to be, so if the degree of change still is not acceptable, you can always send it back again. Those are the 4 examples that I have for you. As you may note, there is a general procedure that you follow with every paper, but it is your own judgment that will lead you to a conclusion, whether the paper is acceptable, if it needs to be revised, or if it needs to be rejected. There's just one more thing for us to talk over, and that is some ethical considerations that you need to be aware of when using Crossref Similarity Check. For information on handling allegations of plagiarism, please see our Author Services page, which hosts Taylor & Francis plagiarism policies and guidance for authors. Our plagiarism policy offers specific recommendations on different types of concerns, which could be helpful when you come to investigate any duplication issues more closely. Featured cases include text recycling, types of permissible secondary publications, or legitimate reasons for overlap. You may wish to refer to Module 5 of the Taylor & Francis Ethics for Journal Editors video series, which focuses on how to deal with potential misconduct and spotting red flags. It is worth remembering that authors will not be able to view this report themselves, so if you need to ask for amendments, try to be as specific as possible when identifying where changes need to be made. If you need further support or advice when investigating concerns, please consult your portfolio manager or Taylor & Francis contact. That brings us to the conclusion of our session today. Please note that Crossref Similarity Check is configured across all Taylor & Francis journals that use ScholarOne Manuscripts or Editorial Manager. If you do not have access to the Crossref Similarity Check functionality on your journal's peer review site, please proceed to our Crossref Similarity Check training quiz, the link to which you'll find under this video on the Editor Resources page. We are also hosting monthly drop-in sessions for editors who have completed the Crossref Similarity Check training and have started using this functionality on their journal. The drop-in sessions are an opportunity to discuss any general questions you may have about using Crossref. The schedule for the drop-in sessions is available via the Editor Resources page. If you have any questions or comments specific to your journal, please direct them to your Taylor & Francis portfolio manager or other editorial contact for them to address or relay to the appropriate team member. Thank you very much for your time. Have a good day and goodbye.